One of the best parts of getting a new car is configuring and setting it up to the way you like it. And in the Tesla Model 3, there is no short list of things to configure. Now, there are a lot of settings inside of the Model 3 that you can set, from lights, locks, display, to safety and security, and even the navigation and autopilot. But there is another setting that isn't available directly from the car's For Settings menu that a lot of people overlook, and that is the audio settings. In this video, I'm going to talk about the proper way to configure your audio settings for your Tesla Model 3, what are some things that you want to watch out for when you first get the car that may have been changed, and talk about why the Tesla Model 3 sound system is really quite amazing. First, let's talk a little bit about the different options available to us. So here I have a couple of different settings. I have the tone, which is basically a parametric equalizer. It lets me do things like control different frequencies, the bass, the mid-levels, the treble, and a little in between as well. I'm not exactly sure which frequency everything is, but it seems like everything's kind of hovering around. Bass is somewhere around 50 to 150 hertz. The next one's about maybe 250 to 500 hertz. The mids is anywhere from 1 to 3,000. 3,000 to 5 is probably the one above that, and 5 and everything above is probably the treble one. That being said, I've spent a lot of time playing with this equalizer, and I even had my friend Jesse, who has been my partner in crime as a musician and music producer for the last 10 years, sit in this car, and we tried our best to make it sound as good as we could. We even brought in a little microphone to see how the sound was inside the car. And the truth is, it sounds great when it's flat. I'd highly recommend that if you're going to make any changes to your car, you try to keep it as flat as possible, because the bass already has a very nice response. It doesn't really have to be boosted. If you happen to like a lot more bass, sure, you could boost it up a little bit, but keep in mind that you're doing that at the cost of the other frequencies being imbalanced. The next thing we're going to talk about is the balance in the car. This is really something that I guess you would want to do maybe if you had like a little kid that you wanted to play music for, but you didn't want to hear it. Then maybe you want to go ahead and grab and pull it all the way over to their corner, or the middle back, or the middle right. And that way you don't have to hear it, but your kid can enjoy it. And yeah. But otherwise, typically with balance, you want to keep it in dead center. And you even see that there's even like a little thing that'll snap to the center. You want to keep it there because if you don't, what you're doing is you're offsetting the balance of the bass. And the bass response is not going to be as good if it's panned left or right, because bass is meant to be completely center in a stereo spectrum. If you move it off of that balance, most bass is mastered to be in the center. You're not going to hear any bass because it doesn't exist in those stereo frequencies. Now lastly, we're going to talk about the options in the audio settings, which really the main thing here is the Immersive Sound setting. Now from the factory it comes set to standard, but if you move it over to off, it creates a more accurate representation of what sound would be like if you were producing in, say, a studio with some studio monitors. But that's not really as nice to listen to as, say, having the Immersive Sound set to standard. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the effect is that's happening, but what it sounds like is the same thing that happens when you use a chorus unit on, say, someone's vocals. What happens is you take the sound, you multiply the number of audio sources, and you give them a slight delay and maybe even a slight pitch up and down so that they don't cause phasing problems. Now, in the case of the Model 3, I don't think it's adjusting pitch, but it does sound like there's some funny stuff going on with the phasing that makes it sound much more wide in the stereo spectrum. That being said, if you turn it up to high, it actually gets a little painful on the ears. It's a little too much. Some people might like it, but really, you'd be crazy to change it from standard. I think it sounds the best there. And these other settings, they're pretty straightforward. DJ commentary, yeah, keep that off. Explicit content, you know, if you're not into that stuff, turn it off. I keep it on. And allowing mobile control allows you to control the music from your phone. So if you want to play, pause, forward, back, maybe turn this off if, you know, you got a kid who's driving the car and maybe you don't want them fussing with their phone while they're driving your car. Let's summarize really quickly what settings that we have for the Tesla Model 3. The best audio settings for most people is going to be to keep your equalizer at a nice flat setting. Most cars come with their audio tuned so that it sounds best when you keep it flat. Next, keep your balance in the dead center because you're going to lose a lot of bass response if you move it anywhere else. Bass likes to exist in the middle center of everything. It does not exist anywhere else. And of course, the Immersive Sound standard, I think personally, makes music much more enjoyable to listen to than having it off or having it high. You may feel differently, but I think standard's a great way to go. So flat EQ, balance in the middle, and keep your immersive sound at standard. One other thing that I'd like to mention about the Tesla Model 3 sound, and I think it's something that makes the sound system so unique and so wonderful to have the premium sound even on this mid-range model, is the way that Tesla has set up these speakers. If you're playing music and you put your ear up to this speaker versus the speaker that's down here, or even the speaker that's in the back, you will notice that the frequencies are actually being rolled off. That is to say, you're hearing sort of the air, the high pitch, the kind of sound spectrum coming from these speakers. You're hearing a great majority of the sound coming from the front of the car, almost like a sound stage, a concert, if you will, where most of the music is in the center. And you'll hear a lot of the mid and bass response coming from these mid woofers on the side, where you won't hear the other frequencies as well. I know it sounds kind of confusing, but basically imagine that every seat in the car is a seat at a concert venue, and you're all facing the major sound source, which is actually the front of the car. And it makes it sound much more immersive, it feels more real, it breathes really well. Not all the speakers are just pouring as much sound out as possible, but they're all doing a specific job for a specific function. And I think really the audio system in this car is something that is overlooked as one of the best parts of the car. Yes, there's autopilot. Yes, there's self-parking. Yes, the navigation and the infotainment system is amazing. But the audio system is really amazing too. And for an audio system that's not branded, that's of Tesla's own design and in-house creation and engineering, I think it's fantastic. And I think Tesla's done a wonderful job here. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you have any other questions about the Model 3 or about audio or the audio system in general, you know what to do. Leave comments down below. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. If you didn't like it, you can hit that dislike button, and you can also take your comments and go somewhere else.